inside the VUTV studios for another edition of Valpo Sports Night. On today's show, the Valpo volleyball team gets on a roll, and we'll also review the BCS rankings in college football. Alongside are two of the best in the business when it comes to Valpo athletics, Joey BASIL, WVUR Sports Director, and Andrew Stem, WVUR Sports Broadcaster. Guys, the Valpo football team took another loss at the hands of the Drake Bulldogs over the weekend, 35-21 the final. Is this just another loss or maybe a moral victory?
I think you're starting to see this team building in the right direction, taking baby steps forward. It was like one step forward, 2 steps back at San Diego, and kind of a half step forward and 3 steps back against Butler. But Drake, one of the better teams in the PFL. There were some offensive changes that took place during that game, and you're starting to see the team hang around a little bit more. I think the biggest deficit they faced was 14 this entire game, so they stung around. It was still a competitive sort of game. Not one of those we've seen in the past where they get way behind in the first half and then can slowly chip away in the second half to make the score a little bit more respectable. Hung around the whole time, and you know, to limit to a team to 35 points, still not quite where you like it, but strides on defense. The offense looks smooth for a little while, so they're getting that way. And if they can just get through like the grinder portion of this PFL schedule, there are some teams down at the end, the teams like Marist and Campbell, teams that a chance the Crusaders could have a chance to knock off. Davidson's another one. So just kind of get through the ringer, a really tough opening portion of this PFL schedule. If they can kind of keep persevering through that and then get towards late October and then early November when some of those winnable games come, really start to put things in motion.
I have to agree with you on that. I mean, yeah, it's a moral victory at the same token, but I mean, if you look at the offensive line for the Crusaders, everybody's hurt. There's at least 3 or 4 guys that I know of personally that are down with knee injuries or leg injuries as it goes, and then they have big freshman offensive linemen that aren't playing right now because they're ineligible until January. So I mean, even if the record doesn't reflect it this year, just the strides that they've made thus far, and if they get those freshmen that are coming in from this recruiting class that are supposed to be, if they live up to the hype that they're supposed to bring, they'll be good next year.
Junior quarterback Quinn Schaefer went 6 for 8 for 78 yards in a TD on his last possession that we had for the Crusaders. Is there a quarterback controversy, and who starts on Saturday?
Ooh, that's a good question. You know, I think the way the offense has run, you got to go with the hot-handed. Right now, Schaefer's got it. I think he's got to be the guy to take the helm of this team. And, you know, Hoffman has had his shots, and he played well early against St. Joe's. Then there have been some struggles. And, you know, you find it when you're 0-6, you might as well start building for next year. Try to find something that works and see if you can get some guys, start putting some guys in some new spots, filling in some new roles, and go with Schaefer and see if he can, you know, propel the offense to kind of start looking so they can start building for next year.
I feel like, I mean, I don't even think it's going to come down to the quarterback position. It's really going to make the difference. I think it's going to be the running back slot. If Gabe Aliel comes back this week, from his injury, do they play Hudson? Hudson's been tearing it up. But I mean, in order for the quarterbacks to be able to throw the ball, they have to run the ball first. And Gabe Aliel hasn't been able to get anything done in the last year and a half so far, for the most part. And Hudson's come in for 3 weeks and has had almost 100 yards every game he's played.
What was impressive to me about Quinn Schaefer's performance was that the Drake Bulldogs knew the Crusaders had to pass. Valpo was trailing them pretty much the whole game. Final possession, obviously going to put it in the air. Quinn Schaefer still persevered, went 6 for 8, 78 yards in a TD. That to me was impressive. Quickly before we move on, do they get a win at Dayton this weekend? Dayton coming off a win last week against Marist. Also have scored 79 points in their last 2 games. Is that a concern, and do you see their first win coming this weekend?
No, I don't think it's going to be this weekend. Dayton's still one of those upper echelon teams we talked about in the PFL, along with Jacksonville. The Crusaders don't play the Dolphins this year. But really, the front portion of this PFL schedule was loaded with the teams who were expected to compete for the top half of the conference title. So again, just try to hope through, get nobody injured, see if you can make some strides on both sides of the ball, you know, hang in there and be competitive like they were against Drake, and then start building for some of those winnable games towards the end of the year.
I mean, they might have a chance, but I mean, it's the same thing coming in the game against Drake. Drake beat San Diego by 40, I believe. And so, like, in San Diego absolutely slaughtered the Crusaders. So, I mean, it was surprising when we beat Drake, so I wouldn't be entirely surprised if there was some kind of upset there.
Okay, let's move on. The Valpo volleyball team won both their matches this weekend in Wisconsin, beating both Green Bay and Milwaukee, respectively. Is this what you needed to see out of them? And if not, what do you need to see improvement-wise?
No, absolutely. This is what you're looking for. This is a team that really consistently, since joining the Horizon League, has struggled on the road in conference play. They've been pretty good at the Athletics Recreation Center. We saw even earlier this year when they split that Chicago trip between UIC and Loyola. And Milwaukee is a team that has really given the Crusaders problems, one of the premier teams for the past few seasons in the Horizon League. At one point, the Crusaders, I can't remember last year whether it was at home or on the road, but they led 2-0 and then let Milwaukee come back and win the final 3.
They almost did that again. They were up 2-0 on Saturday. Milwaukee wins the next 2, but Valpo ended up prevailing.
And persevere and come back. And to get a win like that against a team like Milwaukee, it's got to fill them with confidence. I mean, knowing they can go on the road, there's a chance they're going to have to go back to Milwaukee for the conference tournament. They can feel good about having won there and starting to turn the corner and kind of playing the sort of volleyball we saw for a little while when they won down in Bloomington, but haven't been able to consistently put together. And to consistently put together a few matches on the road, no less, has to bode well for them for the rest of the year.
I feel like it's exactly what they need to do. I mean, if they start clicking like they were when they beat IU, then I don't see how anybody in the Horizon League can stop them. Because, I mean, IU Big Ten play, they're hand and fist better than anybody in the Horizon League.
Yeah. And now Valpo, too, that was their first regular season at Milwaukee during the regular season. They did beat them in postseason play one time. They were 3-3 since the Hoosier Classic. You mentioned their trip down to Bloomington. And then to win now 3 straight matches, I think will propel them for the rest of the Horizon League schedule. And hopefully they get hot, have that good feeling heading into the championship play. Let's move on, guys, to Tommy Kurth. If you guys haven't heard the news, he's been deemed medically ineligible this year by the Crusader training staff. Is this a big deal, and who's going to replace him in the lineup?
It is a big deal in terms of you look at he was one of those upperclassmen who was going to provide that sort of, leadership. Still going to be with the team, just won't be able to take the court. In terms of minutes, I mean, there's always a kind of a question of how many minutes there were going to be to go around because he missed most of last year. He didn't have a lot of minutes that the Crusaders were looking to pick up. But, I mean, you see a guy like Levante Doherty who will be eligible in January, or somebody like Alex Rossi who's coming in and going to be eligible right away, the transfer from Cal. Those guys are going to kind of be asked to step into that guard role and kind of come in and spell Will Bogan, spell Ben Boggs, guys along with Matt Kenny. Pretty deep at the guard position, but a chance for the new guys to come in still and pick up a few minutes and make solid contributions right away.
I think Tommy Kurth is just going to be big as far as like leadership goes this year, especially with you got Vasil Fernandez coming in as a freshman or redshirt freshman forward this year. I guess he's been making big strides. So I mean, if Tommy Kurth is able to lead the team, even though he's not on the floor, he'll still make great strides.
It'll be a collective effort. I hope his spirit lives on, though. As you mentioned, he will still be with the team, still be at practice, still be on the road trip. So hopefully his morale is not lost in all of this, and we still get some production from the other guys that are going to step up. There, on the other side of the break, the championship series are heating up.
Lollipop, lollipop, oh la.
We say what we want Thursday nights at 7 p.m. only on VUTV.
Hi everybody, I'm Dick Vitale of ESPN, and I'm on VUTV. It's awesome, baby, with a capital A.
Back here on Valpo Sports Night, again joined by Joey Basil, WVUR Sports Director, and Andrew Stem, WVUR Sports Broadcaster. Guys, there have been a lot of headlines coming out of the MLB postseason this year. What's the biggest storyline from October baseball so far?
I'd have to say it's Derek Jeter going down for the season.
Okay.
I mean, because the Yankees are struggling as it is, and then for them to lose the captain, I just feel like that's just going to really take all the wind out of their sails.
More than just a productivity standpoint
Yeah,
Like seeing him on the ground, rolling around at Yankee Stadium was not, I guess, the image that would propel your morale to get to the next level.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, they talked about building off of that. Saw a stat that through the first 6 playoff games, Jeter had 9 hits for the Yankees. And in those same 6 games, Robinson Cano, Curtis Granderson, and Alex Rodriguez had combined for 8. So just the production, and that kind of builds into that bigger storyline, is that the Yankee offense has gone outside of Raul Ibanez and the 2 home runs in Game 3, the pinch hit home runs coming in for A-Rod, and then the home run he hit against the Tigers in the 9th inning. The Yankees can score in the 9th inning and in extra innings. They can't score in the first 8 innings, and that's become a major, major problem for them. Realistically, if Jose Valverde doesn't blow up, they get shut out 2 games in a row at home against the Tigers, against really the Tigers' 3rd and 4th starters, Pfister and Sanchez. And now I got to go back to Detroit and face Verlander and Scherzer at home, where the Tigers had the best home record in baseball. That's been big. Another one, Joey's Cardinals. The Cardinals just won't go away. I mean, that infield fly rule was a little bit bizarre, but credit the Cardinals for winning that game. And then they win another do-or-die game down to their last strike again in Washington, and they score 4 runs off Drew Storen, one of the premier closers in Major League Baseball. The Cardinals just have this thing about them, this aura that.
Even without Tony La Russa.
Right. And I think part of it is they build on what happened last year. They just never felt like they were out of it. They never feel like they're out of it now. And until they're gone and eliminated, they're going to be a really, really tough out, and the Giants better watch out.
Okay, you mentioned my headline, Raul Ibanez for the Yankees. Again, they might be quickly thrown to the side with their series against Detroit. But let's put this in perspective here. Back when he was with the Seattle Mariners in 2000 in the ALCS, went 0 for 9. In Philadelphia in the 2009 and 2010 NLCS is 7 for 37 for a 189 clip. I mean, what we're seeing is just preposterous. I mean, him coming up so clutch in the ALCS, that to me has got to be the biggest headline.
Yeah, I mean, he was 3 for 4 in Game 2 yesterday. He didn't hit any home runs, but I mean, he got on base, he drew a walk. He was most of the Yankee offense yesterday. He's really having a resurgence. I think he's 38 maybe. At this portion of his career, he's got that short porch in right field that helps out a little bit on a couple of home runs might have been fly balls in other parks, but he has really stepped up, and he's one of the few guys in that New York dugout who has really stepped up here as the playoffs have gotten started.
Before we move on, guys, what's your prediction for both these series?
Obviously, I have to go with my Cardinals in the LCS.
Naturally.
But I feel like it's not going to be a 4-game sweep. I feel like it's going to go probably 6 is what I would say.
Okay.
I feel like it's really going to hinge on the 7 and 8 combo for the Cardinals. Daniel Descalso and Pete Kozma, they've really been hitting the cover off the ball in the last 3-4 games. So if they can keep hot, I mean, I don't see them losing to the Giants.
What about in the ALCS?
ALCS, obviously, it's going to be Detroit. I mean, the Yankees just haven't been there.
Okay.
I mean, they got lucky getting past the Orioles, I feel like, and facing Verlander for at least 1 game, and then what was the other guy's name? Scherzer. I don't know how to pronounce it. Both of those guys are really stout pitchers, and if their offense isn't already producing, they're not going to start.
Yeah, I have to agree with Joey. I like the Cardinals in 6. I feel like the Giants just don't have the pitching. Tim Lincecum has been, out of whack all season. They needed a good start from Bumgarner last night and didn't get it. You may see Lincecum come back in Game 4, but I think that's going to be too little too late. The Cardinals keep riding the magic. And then I don't think this Detroit-New York series even goes back to the Bronx. I think there's just one team headed back to New York. I think Detroit in 5. Maybe I like Sabathia on the mound for them in Game 4, but you just look, and outside of Sabathia, their starters aren't frightening, and their lineup just can't produce. And maybe it goes back to New York for 6, but I still like the Tigers to win the series in a rematch of 2006.
And I don't need to even go back to you guys. I'm guessing Detroit for your World Series prediction and St. Louis for you.
Sir.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Let's move on. We're a third of the way through the NFL regular season right now. Which team that is sitting at 500 or worse will make the playoffs in your mind?
I'm going to this time yield to you. We talked about my team here in the last segment with the Tigers. I believe it's going to be the Green Bay Packers. They have struggled at times trying to protect Aaron Rodgers, but you saw what they did against the Texans last night. When they can keep him off his back, when they can keep him upright, 6 touchdown passes, 350 yards, and they had a lot to prove. Everybody was saying the Texans defense is fantastic. There's no way they can handle it, and they come right out, guns firing. It was 42-17, finished 42-24, but you're absolutely right. They played angry, and if they keep playing angry, the North is right there for the taking. I'm going to mention the Bears here in a little bit when you ask me the next question, but I feel like the North is right there for the taking, and they still have that swagger, and when they play with that swagger all the time, they're tough to beat.
I feel like it's going to be the Denver Broncos make the playoffs.
Sure.
They currently sit 2-3 right now, but I don't see Peyton Manning going out without at least a couple more playoff appearances under his belt. and I mean they're only a game behind the Chargers, and I don't feel like that the AFC West is strong enough to keep Peyton Manning back.
Let's go to the opposite side of the coin now, guys. And which team that is sitting currently above 500 do you see not making the postseason?
The answer is not going to make me real popular around here. I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears. Bears
Fine with
4-1 right now, but you look at their 4 wins. They've beaten Indianapolis, St. Louis, Jacksonville, and the Cowboys. I think those teams have a combined 7 wins. So they haven't been overly challenged. The only really tough game, they lost against the Packers. They still have another game against Green Bay. They have 2 against Minnesota, 2 against Detroit. They still have a game against the Texans. And still a game against the Titans, who, if they can get their run game figured out, maybe might pose a challengeable threat. But just they're better than they were last year, but I'm not quite convinced that they're there yet. And there's so much parity going on still that I can't see the Bears rising up to getting 11 wins, and they may need that to get the playoffs.
To expand on your point quickly, too, they played one half of football against the Jacksonville Jaguars 3-3. I mean, that is not a playoff team when you play the Jaguars 3-3.
And you look at the Cowboys, they got 5 turnovers, and 2 of them were returned for touchdowns, and they won by like 17 points, right? So it's not as though they've been head and shoulders in all the game above the teams in all the games they won.
And I still am not convinced that Jay Cutler's a leader. We could go all day on my my distaste for him, but we'll move on here.
I'm going to stay in the same division. I'm going to say the Minnesota Vikings. They currently sit 4-2, and I feel like they just caught a bunch of teams off guard coming out because, I mean, the Vikings weren't supposed to be anything this year with Adrian Peterson coming back from the ACL injury. So them coming out like they have and coming out firing, I think once the Packers get their heads out of, and come around, the NFC North won't be Minnesota Vikings for
Very
the
good.
take.
We'll take one final timeout, but on the other side, who's to blame for the Reds' collapse? We'll discuss that and more in our quick hit segment of the program. Stay tuned. This is Valpo Sports.
I'm Molly, and I'm on VUTV.
All right. We're from Kappa Kappa Gamma. We're on VUTV.
Hi, my name is Mike. I'm the WVUR General Manager, and I'm on VUTV.
We're always and we're on VUTV.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Aliana.
And we're on VUTV.
Hey, what's up? I'm Milk. And I'm Matt. We're on VUTV.
I'm Helen Dolan. I'm on VUTV.
Hi.
Hi.
My name's Claire.
My name's Sarah.
And we're on VUTV.
We're Kappa Delta, and we're on VUTV. I'm Rachel, and I'm on VUTV.
Hi, I'm Matthias.
I'm Hillary.
And I'm Philip.
And we're on
VUTV.
I'm Tom, and I'm on VUTV.
I'm Amanda, and I'm on VUTV.
Hey, I'm Ted, and I'm on VUTV.
We're Valparaiso Ultimate, and we're on VUTV.
We're UPC, and we're on VUTV.
We're the Torch, and we're on VUTV.
We're Delta Sigma Pi, and we're on VUTV.
We're Student Senate, and we're on VUTV.
We're Movox, and we're on VUTV.
We're Alliance, and we're on VUTV.
We're the Crusader Pep Band, and we're on VUTV. We're Mesa, and we're on VUTV.
We're Handles, and we're on VUTV.
Hello, I'm Kathleen, and I am with Housing Opportunities, and I am on VUTV.
Hi, we're the Lutheran Deaconess Association, and we're on VUTV. We are Greek University, and we're on VUTV.
I'm ROTC, and I'm on VUTV.
I'm Zach Clark, and I'm on VUTV.
We're Sigma Phi Epsilon, and we're on VUTV.
Hi everybody, I'm Dick Vitale of ESPN, and I'm on VUTV. It's awesome, baby, with a capital A.
Back on Valpo Sports Night for our quick hit section of the program. Again, Joey and Andrew alongside. We compared them a lot before the NFL draft, guys, but who has had the better start to their NFL career, RG3 or Andrew Luck?
I have to take Andrew Luck. I'm a Colts fan, but I feel like Andrew Luck has a brighter future just because he is a pocket passer. I know like the NFL is slowly shifting to this new dynamic of quarterback of Cam Newton and RG3, but at the same time, I don't think RG3 will be able to withstand all the hits that Andrew Luck might be able to take as far as because he scrambles more, he's going to get hit harder.
Okay.
I will take the opposite then. I will take RG3 simply because you look at what he's done in Washington and the combination of basically him, and not to say that he's completely made Alfred Morris better, but the threat of what he can do has made teams less likely to stack up the box to try and stop Morris. So he's finding more running room, and he's throwing passes on the run, and just the excitement that exists in Washington. The Redskins are 3-3, just a couple of wins short of equaling last year's total already, and he's got that team going the right way. You look at the NFC East, and realistically, I mean, the Giants have kind of struggled, the Cowboys have struggled, the Eagles are 3-3. The division is there for the taking. And as opposed to when you look at Luck right now, I mean, I know it's who's going to have a better career, but when you look at this year, the Colts aren't quite ready to challenge the Texans, and the Redskins could very easily challenge and actually win that NFC East and get into the playoffs. Okay,
now consult the 8 ball here. 10 years down the line, who's better?
Down the road, I think I do have to agree with Joey. I think when you look at running quarterbacks, I mean, even Cam Newton is struggling this year after having so much success last year. There's just the defenses in the NFL are built a little bit better than they are in college, and it's not quite as easy to do what Griffin has done over and over and over again. I think he gets worn down a little bit. I mean, he's kind of like a throwing running back. He's a better passer than just a regular running back, but still you see running backs break down 6-7 years, and I think down the line, if the offensive line of the Colts can keep protecting Andrew Luck, Luck's going to have the better career.
I agree. I have to say Luck because I almost see RG3 kind of playing out a little bit like Mike Vick did. Because what he reminds me of watching him play, he reminds me of the 04 Mike Vick when he was, just starting out with the Falcons. Come out, catch everybody off guard, and then, what are we, 10 years, almost 10 years removed from that now, and everybody knows what he's going to do, and he's not as effective anymore.
Okay, one of the headlines that's been kind of lost in the shuffle, guys, in my opinion, is that the Reds lost 3 games at home in the NL Divisional Series. Who's to blame necessarily for that collapse?
I would like to put it on Dusty Baker just because that's,
Clearly management didn't, as Andrew pointed out before the show, that he signed a 2-year extension.
But I also feel like the managers are usually the scapegoats. So, I mean, I think it comes down to the pitching staff down the run because, I mean, they had leads in every game, I believe, but the 5th game of that series, and they blew it. So, I mean, you have to hang it on that, and they haven't won a game at home in the playoffs since 1987, which that's a big stat in its own.
I'm going to lay the blame on the offense. It would be very easy, and Joey's correct, you can blame the pitching staff too. It was kind of an all-out collapse to lose 3 in a row at home, especially after being so dominant in those first 2 games in San Francisco. But where did the bats go? I mean,
that's true.
They took
in their home ballpark.
In their home ballpark. They took those 2 Giants pitchers, I think it was Bumgarner and Vogelsong, and they basically took them out to the woodshed those first 2 games. And then all they needed was 1 additional run in Game 3. It was 1-1 going into extra innings. If they had scored 2 in regulation, they'd have swept, be in the NLCS right now, and they would be hosting, and the Cardinals would be on the road there instead of in San Francisco. And they just couldn't do it. The bats went away for whatever reason. And, you got to lay the struggles to feed the offense.
Yeah, I agree. I have to lay it on the offense. Again, management has built this team for that ballpark specifically. It's a bandbox there, hit a lot of home runs. They've built that team for that, and the offense just went. Yeah, I mean, it was unbelievable to me how they disappeared. Nevertheless, let's move on. The new BCS rankings are out, guys. The top 5 teams are as follows. Number 5, Notre Dame, 4, Kansas State, 3, Oregon, 2, Florida, and sitting atop the ranks is Alabama. Would you make any changes to the system or how they're ranked?
The formula, I think, needs a little bit of tweaking. I know the AP poll pulled out, the writers' poll pulled out of the BCS rankings a few years ago. The problem is the coaches' poll needs to have the same, and I think the writers' poll should actually go back in there because writers get a chance to sit and look at TV and watch all sorts of games when filling out those ballots. And you get coaches who are focused on game planning and coaching, and the last thing they want to do then is turn around and fill out the ballots. So 96% of the time or something like that, you get sports information directors or somebody who's just sort of filling out a ballot. And when it's a third of the total rankings that comes out, that can skew things one way. You look at a team like Notre Dame, who realistically has as good a wins as anybody, but because of the poll numbers, they started out of the rankings or at the very end of the fringe. And the teams who were all in front of them were all ranked top 10, top 15. And it's really hard to jump in front of them, even though you look at the wins like over Michigan, Michigan State, Stanford, while those teams kind of have gone backwards a little bit, still as good a wins as anybody boasts, but they still find themselves sitting at number 5 because they can't get over these teams that are in front of them.
I have to agree with you 100%. I mean, I really am kind of surprised looking at what did come out of as far as the rankings go that Kansas State's there, just because, I mean, I didn't expect them. When did they become a football school? You know what I mean? Like, it kind of caught me off guard, but I do believe that Notre Dame should be above Kansas State just because of the fact, I mean, of everybody you mentioned they beat. Plus, they beat Miami. They only gave up, 3 points to Miami? Mm-hmm. They beat them 35-3. That's huge.
Notre Dame.
Or one other change. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
You take a look at, if you're going to continue to use those polls, you need to wait and have these polls come out like right now.
Right.
Like the Harris poll does, where I think you see Notre Dame being ranked a little bit higher because you can compare their resumes and they're more impressive. But when you start with preseason polls,
they'll never do that though, because
people want to be able to compare them. But
exactly.
in order for this to be fair, you need to be able to sit down and say, okay, now go ahead and rank them based on what they've done now, as opposed to what you think they're going to do. Because you get to the same point where you can't get teams who have better wins to jump over teams who are already in front of them if they don't lose.
I happen to agree with you, but that'll never work with TV hype and all that. You want to see the 17th ranked team going up against the 10th team, even if it's week 2.
Absolutely.
That's just what you want. I wish they thought like us.
Exactly. They say that we got these many top 25 matchups. Well, they shouldn't be ranking teams now anyway, but this is how it is. That sells TV.
Last thing before we close up shop here, Notre Dame, because of the product of their schedule, if they remain undefeated through the whole season, do they deserve a shot at the national title?
I think they do, but I don't think they get it.
Okay.
Because I really do see Oregon going undefeated, and it's either going to be Florida or Alabama who go undefeated out of the SEC.
Yep.
And I can't see and because they're already behind them, they don't have enough schedule strength left, even if they beat Oklahoma, even if they beat SC, because Oregon would have also beaten SC. They're in a position I don't think they can jump over those two teams if one of those teams doesn't go backwards.
I feel like this brings us back to a couple years ago when Boise State went undefeated.
Absolutely.
But on a bigger scale, because it is Notre Dame, and they have beat massive teams so far this year, that what are you going to do with this the BCS system?
Right.
Which, I mean, that's where the playoffs come in next year, but at this point, it doesn't help any.
Fair enough. That'll do it for us. Remember to stay up to date on all your Crusader sports. You can log on to valpoathletics.com. For Joey Basil, WVUR Sports Director, and Andrew Stem, WVUR Sports Broadcaster, I'm Drew Taylor. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.